What's up, Make Pop Music? It's Austin here from Make Pop Music and Austin Hall Audio and Visual, and we are back with another video this week. And this week I wanted to do something that you guys have requested a ton, and that is how to write that retro pop that sounds kind of like the Weeknd's After Hours album. Kind of sounds similar to the newer Dua Lipa and Miley Cyrus stuff. Basically modern pop just kind of injected with all of these 80s sounds and styles and structures. So today we're going to be going over that and how to build a track from start to finish using a lot of those similar elements. But we are going to focus mainly on the Weeknd style because that is more similar to how I personally write, and it's more similar to how I personally perform vocals. So we will be kind of leaning towards that direction, but keep those other references in mind because they will have a lot of similarities in terms of sound design and style. So you can definitely apply these tips to those artists as well. If you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us out a ton. And if you have any questions about anything we're going over, leave that in the comments down below and we can definitely answer those and help you out as much as we possibly can. But without further ado, let's actually hop in and get started on this track. All right, so now that we're in the DAW, I want to go ahead and hop in, and we're going to do this one in a little bit different order than normal. I know normally on the channel we start with synths and keys and melodies and stuff like that, but for this song I really want to focus on the drum groove because that really is a main driving factor in a lot of this kind of like 80s style pop. So I feel like once we get a really nice drum loop, it'll be a lot easier to write a bass line over, and then we can fill that in with chords after the fact. Just a quick little disclaimer, we will be using a lot of Serum in this tutorial, and a lot of the Serum patches that we use are going to be out of our Spectrum pack. I still will go over how to actually make sounds like that. The main reason I use Serum is because I know a lot of the people watching this channel will have it so they can easily follow along. If you don't have Serum, or if you are looking for other stuff in similar styles, definitely check out the Arturia Analog Bundle. That'll have a lot of these really cool sounds. The Roland Cloud will have a lot of these really cool sounds. And then of course you've got stuff like Diva or Synth that's going to give you a little bit more of that kind of like detuned, old school kind of saw style wave. So for this, we're mainly going to be working in Serum. We might dip out a little bit, but you really could use any kind of analog synth to get this style. All right, so let's actually go ahead and hop in. First thing I want to do is I want to make a quick little drum track, and this is just going to be for my kick and my snare. Okay, so I need to go ahead and find a kick, so I'm going to go ahead to our new Dark Pop pack that we just released. It's Dark Pop Volume 2, and we have some analog kicks and snares, which I feel like might work really well. That one kind of sounds sick. Turn it down a little bit. All right, and then let's go ahead and find a snare. Let's head over to the analog or the vintage snare. I kind of like that one. All right, let's go ahead and lay something down real quick. That's really all you need for this kind of like vintage retro style. Sometimes, you know, like Weeknd has Blinding Lights where he's got a little bit more kind of happening with that kick and that snare, but typically you can at least use this as like a nice little starting point. And then what I like to do a lot of the time is take these kick hits that are going to happen on the snare and pull those down in velocity. So I'll pull them all the way up and then pull them down. That way we still have them under that snare, but it's not going to be so much. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and split these up into two different stems. Okay, so I've got a kick right here. I'm just gonna go ahead and add some EQ. I kind of want to boost the subs a little bit to make it a little bit more modern. And then I'm just gonna take a little bit of this like kind of honky midsection out because I know it's gonna get in the way later. Cool, I'm cool with that. Let's move on to the snare. All right, so now let's go ahead and tweak the snare just a little bit. I want to go ahead and add Soothe, just because that's going to kind of give me a little bit more balance in the top end. So they have this one called Harsh Snare Clap. Let's try that. And then I kind of want to push it with a little bit of Fresh Air. The new Fresh Air plugin is Insane by Slate. I've been loving it. And then let's just take out a little bit of that kind of pingy top end. Cool, that's feeling really good to me now. Let's go ahead and start adding in some hi-hats. So for hi-hats, I'm gonna add a sampler. And the reason that I like adding a sampler is because this will pitch the hi-hats up and down as I kind of run through them. So we'll just sort through the hi-hats. All right, I like number 4. Let's go ahead and drag number 4 in. And for this, what I kind of want to do is just paint a little pattern where they're happening every single like but I kind of want that to run up. So all I'm going to do is just paint these in for probably 16th notes. Let's try that. Perfect. We're just going to copy and paste that. Now we've copied and pasted these hats, so now we just have. And now I just want to do a little bit of processing. So I've pulled up drum modulator and I have this kind of, this little multipass setting on. And it kind of gives me this cool like bit crush rundown that I really like. It kind of gives it a little bit of movement. And let's go ahead and spread it out with some Haas effect. All right, so I dragged on kilohertz Haas. Just want a little bit of kind of like stereo spread. I don't want them right up the middle. It just sounds a little goofy. So I'm feeling really good with that. And the last thing I want to add right now is a little bit of kickstart so it pumps with that kick and that snare. All right, I'm feeling good. And let's just go ahead and EQ this and clean this up. Cool. All right, let's go ahead and move on to some melodic elements now. I think the first thing that I want to try to write is a bass line. So let's go ahead and get an instance of Serum up. And then we can actually write within that. Now that we got Serum up, I'm going to flip through a couple of different bass presets. I definitely want something short and plucky. That could definitely work, but we're going to try a couple. All right, so I landed on this preset that I really like called Thickens. And the Weeknd writes a lot in minor, so I think I'm just gonna stick to A minor, so it's all white keys. It'll be really easy for any of y'all to follow along if y'all are recreating this. All right, now I'm gonna play something. Let's see if we can get a really nice bass line. Cool, I really like that. So let's go ahead and stick with something like that. I'm just gonna quantize this up. Now that I've cleaned that up, I just went ahead and shortened this up. I just shortened up envelope 1 that was sending, or envelope 2 that was sending to the cutoff, just to kind of tighten it up, and I shortened up the release on envelope 1. And now that I'm feeling good about that, I kind of want to go ahead and duplicate this and just kind of layer over a synth, because while I feel like this has a lot of the character I'm looking for, there is a little bit of something else that I kind of want poking out. And let's see if we have something, maybe simplicity. Let's maybe pitch it up an octave. Cool. Now I'm feeling really good about that being layered. Okay, now that we've got a good bass line, it's time to start adding in some pads and brass and stuff like that. I think I'm gonna start out with some brass just because that is kind of a staple 80s sound. And when I'm saying brass, I don't mean like actual physical horns or anything like that. I'm really talking about this kind of like very specific synth brass. You'll know it if you hear it. Something just like that. All right, so let's get that going. Perfect. And now I'm just gonna layer that up with some pads. All right, so we've got the brass. I just kind of tightened everything up. I did go ahead and open up this cutoff because I wanted a little bit more. I just drag that second parameter up just so we get a little bit more kind of bright top end. And then I went ahead and added retro color so we could get some of that nice like analog hiss and crackle. And it gives us a cool little bit of flavor. And then I added fresh air to go ahead and bring some of that top end that got filtered out with the RC20. And then I added in a pad. I believe it's just a Devilish pad, again from the Spectrum pack. And then I kind of did the same processing on this with retro color and some fresh air. And so now we have a really cool musical bed where I feel like this is 90% of the idea for these style songs. I do want to go ahead and add a couple more synth elements before we move on. I want to go ahead and add like kind of an ambient pluck, but something that's not following the chord progression exactly. I just want a little bit of extra movement in there where it's not happening all the time, but it kind of gives us a little bit of urgency. Something like that. Let's try that. So now we have the spacey pluck over top just to kind of add a little bit of pizzazz when it comes in. And that just adds a nice little bit of counter melody that's really, really big in songs like this that are super simple. You still want it to have a little bit of flavor and not just be, you know, some straight suspended chords on a bass line. The next thing I kind of want to add is some kind of ARP. I realized The Weeknd and Dua Lipa and Miley Cyrus were all kind of using stuff like this a lot. And when you can add some kind of cool little ARP, it just adds a nice little bit of movement that you can kind of filter in and out. And it really creates a cool little sound. And this is actually just a short little pluck in Serum called Dat Bit, and I'm just kind of playing it as an ARP, not really doing anything crazy. So let's go ahead and quantize this and rename it. Now we've got the sound. I definitely want to filter this out a little bit, so I am going to add some EQ. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop in Pro Q, and we're just going to have something like this to where it's just filtering out that top. And I kind of want some auto pan happening, so it kind of shifts from left and right. So we'll go ahead and add that. So now I've got this auto pan on it, and you can kind of hear it as it goes. And I'm just gonna add a little bit of RC20 for some flavor. So again, like I always do, I just popped on the preset on RC20 and just kind of adjusted it. And so now we have this, and you can see right here that I'm kind of opening and closing this filter as it goes. And that just adds a nice little bit of movement where you're getting a little something, something here and there, but it's not too crazy, and it's not a crazy, crazy melody that people have to really focus on. Time for the last thing I want to add before we move on to structuring the song with verses and stuff like that. I want to go ahead and add some kind of like little brassy, synthy lead. Something like you'd hear out of like a Juno or an Oberheim. So we're going to go ahead and go to the Spectrum pack again. We have one in here that I know is going to be super sick because I actually made it off of Your Eyes by The Weeknd. That's perfect. Let's hear that. And to get sounds like this, all you really want to do is get some kind of saw wave and get some kind of other either square or triangle wave. I just detuned the saw. I left this one right in the middle. And then you kind of just have to finesse the LFOs to really get that, you know, decay that you want. So let's go ahead and track open that lead. All right, so I went ahead and tightened that up. So now we have this over top. But I definitely still want a little bit of a layer. It's still a little thin to me. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate that. We're gonna open up another lead. I think we have one called Coca-Cola. Yeah, that should be really fire. And this is just a little bit more detuned. It's a little bit more kind of abrasive. It's not so like thin and scooped out as that first one. So this will add a nice little bit of character underneath. And for these sounds, it's all about getting that detuning right. So we have some detuning going on in the oscillators. Then we also have some detuning going on for the actual hypermix. Pretty wide, pretty detuned, super chorusy and phasey. And that's really how you get that kind of 80s sound on a lead. So let's go ahead and see what this sounds like now with it. Sounds really sick. I think I just want to duplicate it one more time, and I want to actually use that same second patch and just drag it down an octave. And the reason that I'm doing this is because these are mono synth patches, and I don't want to screw any of that up with going back and forth. So I'd rather just duplicate it and then have that set. I'm feeling pretty good about what we have. I'm thinking this is probably going to be the chorus with that movement in the bass, and then that lead. We'll probably end up dropping that lead for the first half of the chorus and then pulling in some kind of post-chorus. But for right now, I want to go ahead and start working on a verse so we can start actually structuring this bad boy out. So the first thing that I want to do is easily just copy over these drums. I don't need anything crazy. And what we'll probably do is focus on the same kind of structure. We'll just kind of minimize the sounds that we're going to use. So this is the one time that I kind of want to dip outside of Serum, and I want to go to Trillion. I just got it for Black Friday. It wasn't on sale, but I've been wanting it forever. So I finally bought it, and they have some crazy bass sounds. So if you're looking for any kind of, especially like acoustic or electric bass, they have some crazy stuff. And I'm just going to go ahead and search the tried and true and see what we can get. This. Let's see. There should be some really, really cool stuff. Honestly, this will work right off the bat. And what I want to do for these verses is leave it a little bit more suspended instead of having that jumpy bass line. Cool, let's go ahead and get that working. All right, so now we've got that Trillion in there. I think it's time to start adding in some keys. So the first thing I want to do is go ahead and add something super simple. I don't want a lot of like really bright kind of dense sounds in this. I want the verses to be a little bit more sparse. The vocals definitely have to come out on top. So we'll go ahead and open up Serum, and I think that we should have some kind of like nice little, almost like a piano, but not quite. Let's try this. I turn that down a bit, and we should be working with this. Let's try this. Cool, we'll get that tracked up. Now that we got those verse keys, I kind of just want to layer that with like a verse pad. So we'll go ahead and rename this verse pad. And then I kind of want something that's just a little bit, I don't want something super kind of airy and just boring. Something like that could be cool. I don't want something like that. I don't want something like that. I think I'm gonna want something that has a little bit of bite to it. That's perfect. So I'll go ahead and just get that MIDI fixed for that. So now we've got that pad layered up with those keys. Now we have a really good bed. I don't really feel like we need anything else at the moment. Let's move into the second part of the verse because I do want to kind of split this up into an A verse and a B verse. So I'll copy this and paste it over here, and then we can start working on that. One thing I do want to add before we start structuring out the second half is I think I still want some kind of counter melody because we did it in what's going to be the chorus, and I think that it adds a nice little bit of movement. So let's go ahead and find some kind of pluck that we can use. So that could be cool. That's too much. That one's perfect, I think. So I want something that's got a little bit of transient, but it's still kind of airy and bubbly and not super, super bright because we still need that chorus to come in a lot bigger. All right, so I went ahead and tracked up something for the counter melody, really similar to what we did in the choruses. Just adds a nice little bit of something in the background for listeners to kind of hear consciously. And now let's go ahead and start working on this second half. I know that we're gonna wanna layer up these keys and these pads just because it needs to come in with a little bit more intensity. So let's go ahead and add the second keys. And I definitely want something that's got a little bit more bite to it. So let's go ahead and see what we got. Too much. That could be cool. Might be a little too filtered out though. Let's see. This one's called 80s. Let's just try that. That's kind of cool. I kind of want to move this up to the start. Let's turn this to envelope. That's a little better. Let's try that. Just adds a nice little bit of subtle thickness, nothing absolutely insane. We just want a little bit of extra energy coming into that second half. Let's do the same thing with these pads. I'm gonna go ahead and delete the second or the first half of that. And let's just go straight up to the second and find out what sound we want. And for these, I kind of want something a little bit kind of airier. I don't know if I need something quite as forward as the late night drive pads that we had originally. Let's try something. That could be kind of cool with that, a nice little bit of movement. Cool, I'm feeling pretty good about that. Now that we've kind of built that up, I think I want us to add in this ARP that we kind of have coming that comes into the chorus. I kind of want to pop that in just to see if we can get some movement in. That's pretty cool. And then right before this chorus, I think I want to go ahead and drop out the drums. So then we have this kind of like suspended, nice little airy section. Then we'll go right into a chorus right here. Perfect. Now that we've kind of built up this verse, I just want to go ahead and put some of these elements over to the chorus because I think they might fit in well without overcrowding it. So we're going to copy over these verse pads, and then we're going to go ahead and copy over the second verse keys as well. And I do want to go ahead and copy the bass line that we have onto the trillion layer that we've added. So let me go ahead and add that in. All right, and then I might just have to swap it up an octave. I think I want to get rid of these. These are a little crowded. Go ahead and cut these off. I don't think I'm going to need those because I'm going to do a little dropout. And let's go ahead and layer up this snare. I think I want to go ahead and put some kind of clap just because right now it's not doing everything I need for that chorus. It sounds really cool in the verse, but I want to go ahead and layer that up just so we can get something with a little bit more body behind it. So I'm going to go ahead and find a clap over here. I want something that's going to be nice and wide. That'll work. I'm just going to want to turn that way down. Perfect. Sounding good to me. I think we need to add in some risers and hits and maybe like a drum fill. So let's go ahead and add a nice little drum fill. I think that that'll give us a really cool 80s vibe. I know that all of the artists that we've kind of referenced are doing these. And at this point, it's a little cliche, but they're still kind of fun to do. I don't know if I was, if I was going to release a song with an artist or if I was being hired to produce something, I might not do this just because, again, it's a little overplayed. But for the purposes of the tutorial, I feel like we got to throw it in just because it's kind of like the staple thing. So I know that we have some really cool toms in this. So we'll go ahead and drag that in. Cool, let me turn these like way, way, way down, and then I'm gonna go ahead and track something over here. Sweet. Now it's time to add some risers and hits. These are all super, kind of personal preference and personal choice, and we could take up a whole video just picking out these. So I'm just gonna pop a couple in and then we'll check in and I'll kind of show you what I did. All right, so I added a few risers and hits just to give us a little bit of tension. So I have these. Kind of industrial, kind of atmospheric one. And then that one that's almost like a horror movie, and then we have it going into this. Nice little low hit. We've also got this little hit right here. Nice little kind of 80s downshifter. We have a crash right here that I put some delay on. And then a nice little crushed hit sound. And all of these came from the Risers, Hits, and Transitions folder in the Dark Pop Volume 2 pack. And all together, they kind of make this really cool atmospheric meets vintage meets kind of modern. Now, I know that I'm gonna wanna go ahead and sing over this part, so I am just gonna go ahead and duplicate this, and what I'm gonna do is, sucks to see them go, but they're gonna have to go for the first half. Those leads are coming out for a second, and then they'll come back in for the kind of post-chorus. The last thing I wanna go ahead and do before we add in vocals is I do wanna add some kind of little intro. So I am gonna go ahead and pull up another instance of Serum and pull up some kind of like atmospheric sound that's gonna have a nice little bit of edge. So I found this atmosphere. It kind of reminds me of the Thriller sound, which I feel like works perfectly for the Weeknd. I do just want to go ahead and filter that out because it's a little much. Add just a quick instance of Pro Q just to filter it out. And then what we'll do is we'll sweep it up as the intro plays. So we'll do something where it kind of fades. And then I might actually go into an instrumental version of the hook for a second, and then we'll go into the verse. So I kind of want it to be like atmospheric intro, big post-chorus hook, and then back into the small verse. So let's try something like that real quick. Cool. I just want to go ahead and layer up this Atmos pad. All right, so we added a second Atmos pad in. This one's like some screams, and let's go ahead and see what that sounds like. Then I'm just gonna add some risers and some swells, and then we'll kind of come back in and check what it sounds like. All right, so we added in the pads and we added in some risers, so now it kind of filters up like I was talking about. Now it's time to add vocals. Since this video is already running really long, we are just gonna go ahead and pop in the vocals. I'll go ahead and write them off camera, and then we'll come back. If you have any questions about how I wrote the vocals, honestly, you can refer to a lot of our other How to Write Like Artists videos. We go over it. The Weeknd songs are pretty straightforward. It's all about breaking up with girls, drugs, sex, just really, really dark themes. So I'm gonna write some stuff and then pull it back in, and then we can go over it so I don't spend a ton of time talking about that. I went ahead and tracked some vocals, so we'll go over the vocal arrangement and we'll go over kind of how I layered and processed them, and then I'll kind of show you guys the lyrics all at once, and then at the end, we'll go ahead and have a full song playthrough. So let's go ahead and take a look. For most of the song, we just have a lead vocal, even right here through the verses. You can see right here that we have a couple delay throws and some ad-libs, but we don't really pull in any sax until this chorus way over here. So let's go ahead and take a look at what is happening on this lead vocal. So. I can tell just by the way you walk, you've been looking for the guy to come and rule. So I tracked this on a Slate ML1, it's the virtual microphone, and then this is going straight into a FG800, which I know the Weeknd is used to tracking on. Went through a FG73 preamp, went through a kind of Neve style EQ just to give me a little bit of top end and control some of those lows and mids before I hit the compressor. Then I'm just doing a vintage compressor to kind of give me a little bit more mids in my vocals, since we are going for that kind of 80s sound. And then the two-way just came out a couple weeks ago. I've been loving this. It's been on every mix since it came out, and it is my go-to two-way plugin now. So we have all of that rocking right here. I'll go ahead and turn everything off so you can kind of hear. I can tell just by the way you walk. Then we're going into some auto-tune, just set to the key of the song, not doing anything crazy. The next thing that we're doing is going into some Pro Q, and I just scoop out a little bit of mids and top end to kind of tighten up my vocals. I can tell just by the way you walk, you've been looking for the guy to come and ruin your. Then we're going into the iZotope RX de-esser. It's my favorite de-esser at the moment. It's just super easy to control. It's really, really easy to make sure that you're not absolutely dominating your sound. And then I'm going straight into Soothe with some vocals mids control. I've been using Soothe a ton since I got it on Black Friday. If you're looking for anything to kind of smooth out your vocals or your snares or your overheads, Soothe is my new go-to. It sounds incredible. And then we're going straight into Pro Q3, taking out some mids. You've been looking for the guy to come and ruin your whole life. Got some MB just to compress the lows and the low mids a little bit, just to make sure they don't get out of hand. And then we're adding in a little bit of brightness back with Fresh Air, since we took a little bit out with Soothe and our de-esser. And this is what it sounds like.
I can tell just by the way you walk, you've been looking for.
And then for sends on the vocal widening, we have the Roland Dimension D, which I always use, but is very, very fitting for this 80s sound because it has just such a nice little chorus. So it's basically sending to that to give me a little bit of stereo spread and to just give me a little bit of modulation. And then for the long reverb, I'm using Pro R on the vocal hull setting, about 2 seconds. Not super wide, but not narrow either. Of course, 100% wet. And then I'm filtering it out just to make sure that we don't get any top end sizzle and we don't get any low end mud. For the short reverb, we're back to the Slate plugins with Verb Suite. I love the rooms in here. So I'm using the BM7 small Vox room.
And for the guy to come and ruin your whole life.
Just gives you a nice little bit of kind of almost like a slapback and a nice little bit of spread. And I've swapped to using repeater lately. I used to use H delay a ton, but repeater is now my go-to. I'm on the tape delay modern setting, just on an 8th note. I like that I can spread it without going ping pong, so it gives me a little bit of stereo kind of width.
Just by the way you walk, you've been looking for the guy to come and ruin your whole life.
Then I just got an H delay, kind of slap delay, not doing anything insane. We've gone over that a million times on the channel. And that is all of the vocal sends. And then for the actual Vox delay throws, it's pretty much the same settings. I just didn't use Soothe because it's a little CPU intensive. And I just added repeater straight onto this on a 4th mode and then added its own little reverb. So now we just have that popping up on words that are important.
I can tell just by the way you walk.
And I just kind of do that throughout the song just to give me a little bit of tail. And then I have this little response vocal that we've tuned down an octave in auto-tune. Literally just transpose it down 12 semitones and then I spread it out with doubler.
I can tell just by the way you walk.
So it's essentially turn down an octave, add the doubler to spread it out, add the decapitator to saturate it, and then add just a little bit of reverb and delay with Pro R and repeater. And that's pretty much it. That's really all the vocal production we have for most of the song. We've got some ad-libs that come in a little later here. And these are basically just the normal vocal chain. I just added doubler to spread them out, and then I added its own instance of Pro R and repeater to just give it its own little space outside of that main vocal.
Let me take control of the night, so turn down the lights, baby, poetry. Let me take.
And I wanted something where I could add in those little harmonies, but I didn't want it to be insanely overly stacked. The Weeknd vocal production on his album and the Miley Cyrus album, they're pretty stripped back. Dua Lipa goes a little bit bigger, but for that 80s sound, generally less is more, and you can kind of keep it as simple as you want. And then going into this chorus, this is where we start layering up stuff. So we've got the lead vocal, and then of course I tracked it again for the left side, tracked it again for the right side. The vocal chain is exactly the same. I just took out a little bit of low so they're not a little boomy on the sides.
When I wake up tomorrow, girl, you better be gone, 'cause I'm not one to follow.
So the exact same thing, you just have to record them a couple more times so they don't phase out. Then we've got a harmony right here.
When I wake up tomorrow, girl, you better be gone, 'cause I'm not one to follow, and I can lead you on.
And then we have one more harmony, and that's just this guy right here.
When I wake up tomorrow, girl, you better be gone, 'cause
And it's really just in unison with the main, it's just down an octave. So it's not even technically a harmony. So all this is 3 takes of the main melody, 2 takes of one harmony, and then 2 takes of the octave lower of the main melody. Then we have a couple extra delay throws right here doing the same thing as the verses.
When I wake up tomorrow, girl, you better be gone, 'cause I'm not one to follow.
And all together sounds like this.
I need you to know, when I wake up tomorrow, girl, you better be gone, 'cause I'm not one to follow, and I can lead you on.
And for that Weeknd vocal sound, especially on his new album or the Dua Lipa album, or even the Miley Cyrus album, they're going pretty wet and pretty dark with their reverbs. So that's why I use something like Pro R. You could also use something like Verb Suite that kind of has some vintage modeled reverbs. You're gonna want something that you can kind of filter out and that has a little bit of depth. You're not gonna want some super, super modern play or some modern like convolution reverb. So just kind of keep that in mind. And then other than that, adding some of those stereo effects with like the slapback delays and the roll in dimension D or some kind of chorus or modulation is going to be huge for getting that kind of 80s vocal sound. And that pretty much does it. I mean, then we've got a little post chorus right here that you'll hear in a second. Nothing really to go over production related right there. I think that's it. So now we can go ahead and we can show you the whole thing. You can kick back, listen to it for about a minute and a half, and then we'll wrap this video up.
Times, but all I'm thinking about's tonight. So turn down the lights, baby, pour a drink. Let me take control. No rules tonight. I got one little thing I need you to know. When I wake up tomorrow, girl, you better be gone, 'cause I'm not one to follow, and I can't lead you on. So I have to be honest, I'd rather be alone. I just need some company tonight. I just need to ease my mind, Novocaine. Be my Novocaine. Oh, be my Novocaine. Oh, be my Novocaine.
And that's going to do it. That's going to be how you make that 80s kind of retro pop Weeknd, Dua Lipa, Miley Cyrus style song. It's just a lot of vintage synths, you know, a lot of those like analog brass sounds, a lot of cool little plucks, and then drum beats tend to be pretty simple on these. I know a lot of the time on the channel we end up layering a ton of percussion, and we do a lot of this really modern kind of layering, adding in extra little backbeats. These songs tend to be really, really simple, something that a drummer could actually play. So just keep that in mind when you're kind of building the bass. And then it's all just about finding a really, really good bass line and kind of filling out those sounds with something that's going to be a nice kind of textural bed that brings back those 80s kind of nostalgic sounds. Again, if you liked a lot of the sounds that we used in this video, definitely go check out our packs at makepopmusic.com. All of the synths that we used in this pretty much were from our new pack Spectrum, and then all of the drums that we used in this were from the new Dark Pop Volume 2 pack. We did launch those in November, so they are super new. If you haven't checked them out, go check them out right now because there is a ton of amazing sounds in them. If you like this video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us out a ton. And if you want to let us know what videos you want to see in the comments down below, we do actually look at those suggestions and we do add them to our list. So until next time, that's going to do it for this video, but I will see you guys next time. Much love, everybody. Peace out.